We like to think we've conquered this planet. We've mapped the highest peaks of the Himalayas, we've sent rovers to the dusty plains of Mars, and we track every square inch of land via satellite. But there is a veil we cannot pierce. Beneath the rolling waves of our blue marble lies a kingdom of crushing pressure and eternal night. Over 80% of the Earth's oceans remain unobserved, unmapped, and completely unexplored. We are strangers on our own world. In the depths, the laws of biology begin to warp. Sounds that defy physics echo through the abyss, and structures that shouldn't exist sit silently on the silt of the sea floor. Today, we descend into the midnight zone to look at the mysteries that science simply cannot explain. The abyss is watching. Are you ready to see what's looking back? Chapter 1: The Bloop. Ghost Sounds of the Deep. In the summer of 1997, the U.S. National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, or NOAA, detected something impossible. It was a sound. A low-frequency, ultra-powerful noise picked up by hydrophones across the Pacific Ocean. They called it the bloop. For thousands of miles, underwater sensors vibrated with a rhythmic, organic pulse. It lasted for about a minute, and it was loud. Not just loud, it was several times louder than the loudest recorded animal on Earth, the blue whale. To create a sound of that magnitude, a biological creature would have to be gargantuan. We're talking about a leviathan that would dwarf any known dinosaur. Years later, science offered an official explanation: icequakes. The sound of massive icebergs cracking and scraping the ocean floor. But many aren't convinced. Cryptozoologists and rogue researchers point to the sound's unique organic signature. They wonder if, in the deepest, most remote trenches of the South Pacific, something truly massive is breathing. If it wasn't ice, then what is capable of screaming loud enough to shake the entire Pacific? Chapter 2: The Baltic Sea Anomaly, the Sunken UFO. In June of 2011, a Swedish-based diving team named Ocean X was searching the floor of the Baltic Sea for an old shipwreck. What they found instead sent shockwaves through the scientific community. Nestled nearly 300 feet below the surface was a massive, circular object, roughly 200 feet in diameter. It wasn't just a rock formation. It looked mechanical. It looked designed. With its sharp edges, right angles, and a long, flat runway stretching out behind it, the media immediately gave it a nickname: the Millennium Falcon of the Deep. But the mystery didn't stop at its shape. As the divers approached the object to take samples, their equipment began to malfunction. Cameras flickered out, satellite phones died. The divers reported that any electrical device became completely useless within 200 meters of the anomaly. As soon as they drifted away, everything sparked back to life. Geologists have tried to dismiss it. They claim it's a glacial deposit, a relic from the Ice Age moved by shifting glaciers. But that doesn't explain the chemical composition. Preliminary tests on the material suggested it wasn't just stone, but a mix of metals that do not occur naturally in that environment. Some believe it's a secret Nazi anti-submarine weapon lost during World War II. Others are convinced it's a craft from another world that crashed into the sea thousands of years ago, its hull now petrified by time and silt. To this day, no government or university has funded a full-scale excavation. It sits there, cold and silent on the seabed, a massive metallic ghost that refuses to tell its story. What is it protecting? Or, more importantly, what is it waiting for? Chapter 3: The Yonaguni Monument, Japan's Underwater Pyramid. In 1986, near the coast of the Yonaguni Islands in Japan, A local diver was looking for a new spot to observe hammerhead sharks. But as he drifted through the crystal-clear waters, he saw something that shouldn't exist. Towering up from the seabed was a massive, monolithic structure. It stood over 80 feet tall and stretched over 600 feet long. But it wasn't a jagged reef. It was a series of perfectly flat terraces, sharp 90-degree angles, and what looked like a grand staircase carved directly into the bedrock. This is the Yonaguni Monument. To some, it is the greatest geological fluke on Earth. To others, it is the smoking gun that proves a lost civilization once thrived before the last ice age. Mainstream geologists argue that the structure is trench pool topography, the result of natural tectonic activity and the relentless erosion of the Pacific currents. They say the sandstone simply fractured in a way that looks like human architecture. But how do you explain the twin pylons? Two massive vertical stones standing side by side that look like the entrance to a temple. How do you explain the stage? A flat, circular plateau surrounded by what appear to be drainage channels. Even more unsettling are the markings. Divers have photographed what look like primitive carvings of animals and symbols etched into the stone. If this was built by human hands, it would have to be over 10,000 years old. That is 5,000 years before the first pyramids were built in Egypt. If the Yonaguni Monument is a city, it is a city that was swallowed by the rising tides at the end of the last Great Frost. It stands as a silent, submerged monument to a chapter of human history that has been completely erased from our records. Are we looking at natural rock, or are we swimming through the ruins of a world we've forgotten? Chapter 4. The Milky Seas Effect. Glowing Ghost Waters. Imagine you are a sailor in the middle of the Indian Ocean, 1,000 miles from the nearest coastline. The moon is hidden behind thick clouds, and the world is a void of total, suffocating blackness. Then, suddenly, the horizon begins to bleed. Within minutes, the entire ocean around you transforms. The dark water vanishes, replaced by a glowing, neon-white expanse that stretches as far as the eye can see. This isn't just a patch of light. It is a glowing field the size of a small country, shimmering with a ghostly, milky luminescence. For centuries, mariners told tales of these milky seas. They were dismissed as the hallucinations of salt-cracked mines or the exaggerations of drunk sailors. But in 2005, a satellite captured the impossible, a massive, glowing area in the ocean, visible from space, that persisted for 3 nights straight. Science calls this bioluminescence. The theory is that trillions upon trillions of specialized bacteria, known as Vibrio harvii, are colonizing the surface. But here is where the mystery deepens. For bioluminescent bacteria to glow together, they must reach a specific population density. They need to be gathered in numbers so vast that they dwarf any other biological event on the planet. But how do they do it? The ocean is a chaotic, moving environment. Currents should tear these colonies apart, yet these milky seas remain perfectly uniform, glowing with a steady, eerie light that doesn't flicker like normal plankton. Some researchers wonder if there is a deeper chemical communication happening, a quorum sensing on a planetary scale. Is the ocean itself sending a signal? Or are these bacteria reacting to something moving beneath the surface that we can't see? To sail through a milky sea is to feel like you are flying through a nebula in deep space. It is a reminder that the ocean isn't just water and salt. It is a living, breathing entity that can change the very color of the world whenever it chooses. Chapter 5. The Dragon's Triangle, the Pacific's Bermuda. Most people have heard of the Bermuda Triangle, but few know of its far more lethal sibling, located on the opposite side of the globe. Off the coast of Japan, near the island of Miyake, lies a patch of the Pacific known to locals as Mano Umi, the Sea of the Devil. This is the Dragon's Triangle. For over 1,000 years, Japanese sailors have whispered of a void in these waters where ships go to die. The legends speak of ancient colossal dragons that rise from the floor of the abyss to drag vessels down into the darkness. But while the legends sound like folklore, the statistics are terrifyingly real. In the 1950s, the Japanese government declared the area a danger zone after a series of inexplicable disappearances. In a single 2-year period, 9 massive freight ships vanished in perfectly calm weather. No debris, no oil slicks, and no bodies were ever found. Desperate for answers, the Japanese government sent a research vessel, the Kaio Maru No. 5, to investigate the site with a team of 31 scientists. They never came back. The ship was obliterated, seemingly from beneath, leaving behind only questions and a lingering sense of dread. Science tries to offer a rational explanation. The region is home to intense volcanic activity and massive deposits of methane hydrates. When these gas pockets burst, they can theoretically turn the ocean into a frothing, low-density foam, causing a ship to lose buoyancy and sink like a stone in seconds. But gas leaks don't explain the electromagnetic anomalies. Pilots flying over the Dragon's Triangle report compasses spinning wildly and electronic fog that wipes out navigation systems. Is it just a coincidence that this region sits exactly opposite the Bermuda Triangle on the Earth's surface? Or is there a vile vortex at play, a tear in the magnetic field of our planet that the ocean has used to swallow our history for centuries? Whatever the cause, the Dragon's Triangle remains a graveyard without headstones. Chapter 6. The Mariana Trench. What lives in the 7th mile? If you were to take Mount Everest and flip it upside down into the Mariana Trench, there would still be over a mile of dark, cold water above its peak. This is the Challenger Deep, a scar in the Earth's crust nearly 7 miles down, where the pressure is over 1,000 times that of sea level. For a long time, we believed nothing could survive down there. The pressure would crush bone into powder, the cold would freeze blood. But every time we send a camera into that crushing blackness, we find that life has found a way. We have seen ghost fish with translucent skin that looks like wet tissue paper. We have found giant amphipods that have evolved to be hundreds of times larger than their surface cousins. But it's the things we don't see clearly that haunt the researchers. In 1985, the research vessel Glomar Challenger was performing a deep-sea lowering. They had lowered a massive, high-tech steel sphere into the trench. Suddenly, the equipment began to jerk violently. When they hauled the sphere back to the surface, they were horrified. The thick steel was crushed and mangled, and the heavy-duty steel cables, designed to hold thousands of tons, had been gnawed and shredded, as if bitten by something with teeth made of diamond. What has the power to chew through steel at a depth of 30,000 feet? Skeptics say it was a jagged rock or a technical failure. But the ocean's deep layer is vast. We have only seen a tiny fraction of it. Some theories suggest that the trench acts as a sanctuary, a time capsule for prehistoric megafauna. If a creature like the megalodon or a giant plesiosaur retreated to these depths millions of years ago, they would be perfectly safe from the extinction events that wiped out the rest of the world. Down here, there is no sun. There is no plant life. There is only the rain of organic marine snow falling from above, and whatever monsters have learned to hunt in the dark. We aren't just exploring a trench. We are looking into the basement of the world, and something is looking back. Chapter 7. The Immortal Jellyfish. Biological Rule Breakers. There is a fundamental law of nature that every living thing must follow. You are born, you grow, you age, and eventually, you die. It is the cycle that governs every creature on this planet. Except for one. Meet Turritopsis dohrnii. To the naked eye, it's nothing more than a tiny, translucent bell, barely the size of a fingernail, drifting aimlessly in the Mediterranean and the waters of Japan. But this creature possesses a biological superpower that sounds like pure science fiction. It is functionally immortal. When this jellyfish face physical damage, starvation, or simply the wear and tear of old age, it doesn't die. Instead, it undergoes a process called transdifferentiation. It pulls its tentacles in, sinks to the ocean floor, and transforms its existing cells back into their earliest state. It literally turns itself back into a baby. Imagine a butterfly turning back into a caterpillar, or an old man turning back into a fetus. This jellyfish can repeat this cycle indefinitely, effectively hitting the reset button on its own lifespan. But the mystery isn't just how it does it, it's why. Why did the ocean produce a creature that refuses to leave the stage? If the blueprint for immortality exists in a simple jellyfish, what else has the deep sea perfected over millions of years of isolation? Some scientists fear we are witnessing a silent invasion. Because they cannot die of old age, these immortal jellyfish are hitching rides in the ballast water of cargo ships and spreading to every corner of the globe. They are colonizing the world's oceans, one rebirth at a time. We spend billions of dollars looking for the fountain of youth in labs and chemicals, while it has been floating silently in the waves for eons. It makes you wonder, if a brainless jelly can bypass death, what other ancient, undying things are lurking in the shadows of the abyss, waiting for their turn to rise? Chapter 8. The Colossal Squid. Legend versus Reality. For centuries, the Kraken was the ultimate nightmare of the high seas. A monster with arms like tree trunks, capable of splintering a wooden galleon and dragging an entire crew into the foaming brine. For a long time, science laughed at these tales, dismissing them as the fever dreams of sailors who had spent too many months at sea. But then, we started finding the scars. Whalers began catching sperm whales with massive, circular wounds burned into their skin, scars from suction cups the size of dinner plates. Even more terrifying, some of these scars were lined with deep, jagged gashes. These weren't just suction marks. They were the result of rotating, razor-sharp hooks. In the early 2000s, the myth finally became flesh. We discovered the Messonychoteuthis hamiltoni, the colossal squid. This isn't just a larger version of the squid you know. It is a half-ton titan of the deep, equipped with eyes the size of soccer balls, the largest eyes of any living creature, designed to catch the faintest glimmer of light in the pitch-black depths of the Southern Ocean. But here is the mystery that science cannot solve. Despite their massive size and their status as one of the ocean's apex predators, we have almost zero footage of them hunting in the wild. We know they exist. We have their bodies. We see the carnage they leave behind on the bodies of whales. But in their own habitat, thousands of feet below the ice, they are ghosts. Think about that. A creature the size of a bus, armed with rotating talons and a beak that can snap through bone like a dry twig. And it can hide so effectively that we can't find it with all the technology on Earth. If a half-ton monster can remain invisible in our oceans, what else is down there that hasn't been caught yet? The Kraken wasn't a myth. It was just a warning. And we are only just beginning to realize how many more warnings are waiting in the dark. Chapter 9. The Upsweep. The Seasonal Pulse. Sometimes, the most terrifying things aren't what we see, but what we hear. Since 1991, an unidentified sound has been pulsing through the Pacific Ocean. It isn't a scream like the bloop or a mechanical drone. It is a long, rising whistle that sweeps upward in frequency over and over again. Scientists call it the Upsweep. This isn't a one-time event. The Upsweep is a seasonal ghost. It reaches its peak every spring and autumn, its eerie, rhythmic melody vibrating through thousands of miles of water. It is loud enough to be detected by hydrophones across the entire Pacific Basin, yet its source has remained a complete enigma for over 30 years. When researchers tried to triangulate the sound, they pointed their equipment toward a remote area of the South Pacific, near the volcanic ridges of the Antarctic. But when they arrived, they found nothing. No active volcanoes, no geological shifts, just empty, freezing water. What makes the Upsweep truly bizarre is its change over time. Since the early 90s, the overall volume of the sound has been steadily declining. It is fading away, like a battery running out of power, or a creature slowly dying of old age. Geologists have suggested that the sound might be caused by seawater coming into contact with large pools of lava, creating a rhythmic boiling effect. But if that were true, the sound should be constant. It shouldn't follow the seasons. It shouldn't have a beat that feels so intentional. Some theorists have proposed a more chilling idea. They believe the Upsweep is a massive automated communication signal, a relic of a Cold War project or perhaps something even older, left behind on the seafloor, still trying to send a message to a recipient that no longer exists. Every year, the whistle gets a little quieter. Every year, the pulse grows a little weaker. We are listening to the final breaths of a mystery we may never solve before it vanishes into total silence. What happens when the Upsweep finally stops? Chapter 10. Alabama's Ghost Forest, the Sunken Time Capsule. Sometimes, the ocean doesn't just hide what's in the water. It hides what used to be on the land. In 2004, Hurricane Ivan slammed into the Gulf of Mexico, its massive waves scouring the seabed with unprecedented force. When the storm cleared and the sediment settled, a team of divers discovered something that shouldn't have been there. They were 60 feet below the surface, miles from the coast of Alabama, and standing upright on the ocean floor was a forest. Thousands of massive cypress trees, their roots still firmly planted in the silt, their trunks stretching upward through the murky water like the fingers of a buried giant. This is the underwater ghost forest. When scientists extracted core samples from the wood, they expected to find rot and decay. Instead, they found fresh sap. The wood was so perfectly preserved that it still smelled like fresh cypress when it was cut. Carbon dating revealed the impossible truth. This forest is over 60,000 years old. It lived and breathed during a time when early humans were just beginning to migrate out of Africa. It was a time when the sea levels were hundreds of feet lower, and the world was locked in the grip of a massive glacial period. But the mystery isn't just that it exists, it's how it stayed alive. For 60 millennia, this forest was sealed in an oxygen-free tomb of sand and sediment, protected from the bacteria that causes wood to vanish. It is a literal time capsule, a glimpse into a world that was swallowed in an instant. Marine biologists are now rushing to study the site because the forest has created its own unique ecosystem. Creatures that exist nowhere else in the Gulf have made these ancient trunks their home. But the clock is ticking. Now that the forest has been uncovered, the salt water and sea life are finally beginning to do what 60,000 years of time couldn't. They are eating it away. The ghost forest of Alabama is a chilling reminder of the ocean's power to reclaim the earth. How many more of our cities, our forests, and our histories are currently sleeping beneath the waves, waiting for the next big storm to wake them up? Conclusion. The abyss stares back. We began this journey by calling the ocean the final frontier. But after seeing what lies beneath, perhaps a better word is the great unknown. From the rhythmic, ghostly pulse of the Upsweep to the impossible geometry of the Yonaguni Monument, we have seen that the sea does not play by our rules. It is a place where biology hits the reset button on death, and where monsters from our oldest myths are proven to be cold, hard reality. Every year, our technology gets better. Our submersibles go deeper. Our satellites see clearer. And yet, for every answer we pull from the salt and the silt, the ocean presents 10 more questions. We have mapped the surface of the moon to a resolution of 7 meters, but the floor of our own trenches remains a blur of shadow and static. There is a famous saying, when you look into the abyss also looks into you. Standing on the shore, looking out at the endless blue horizon, It's easy to feel like the masters of this planet. But the deeper you go, the more you realize we are merely guests on a world that is 70% water. We are surrounded by a kingdom that doesn't need us, a kingdom that has watched civilizations rise and fall from the safety of the dark. The mysteries we've explored today aren't just anomalies, they are reminders. They remind us that there are still secrets on this earth that we aren't meant to know. At the bottom of the 7th mile, in the crushing silence of the trench, the abyss is still watching. The only question is, what will happen when it finally decides to speak? If you enjoyed this descent into the deep, hit the subscribe button and join us as we continue to map the unmappable. And tell me in the comments, which of these mysteries keeps you away from the water? Until next time, stay curious and watch the waves.